Hello, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. We post on Sundays, 2 p.m., depending on where you are in the world. If you agree or don't agree, please put a comment in the comment section below and be courteous. And if you don't know how to be courteous, I'm sure someone on the panel can help you. We also, you also don't want to miss our RIPS episodes. Oh, you don't know what RIPS stands for? Check it out and find out what it means. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, Miss Helen. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Race Code War, the Power of Words, Images, and Symbols on the Black Psyche by Khari Enaharo study. We're going over pages 76 through 86. And I don't mention the dates on the broadcast because I believe counter-racist material is, is timeless until the problem is solved. But today is 10/31/2021, which is so-called Halloween. We'll be having a decoding of Charlie Brown's The Great Pumpkin sometime today. But getting started, this was a lot of constructive information jam-packed into this, and the correction is pages 77 through 86. So the first word that deserves some attention from race code words is race card. And I think this term is super important. And I'm sure we've all have had this term used in our proximity or maybe even used against us. So the term is race card, and I'm going to read a little bit from page 77. If a charge of racism is made, it gets poked fun at by saying, "Oh, there you go again, playing the race card." This is an effective shielding mechanism for hiding the hand that threw the racial rock. Race card dialogue dilutes serious attempts at racial reformation and conciliation. It essentially says that race is not an issue or a problem and is only being used because the accuser has no other grounds to gain sympathy and support. And the second paragraph also is very constructive. It states, the race card statement says that racism does not exist or does not exist at the level the accuser indicates, and that it is a lame excuse and only exists in the mind of the victim. It has now become a convenient excuse for blaming someone else for personal problems and social shortcomings. The race card argument further adds validity to the notion that Black people are really lazy and dysfunctional and want others to take care of them. It also has the effect of dismissing hundreds of years of racist history as nothing but profane rantings from a do-nothing group of people. The race card is a very dangerous statement, and it must not be trivialized because it is a brilliant and powerful two-word statement that obliterates the impact of racism. I think this could be seen as a gaslighting. I suspect this is a lot what people now call gaslighting, when people attempt to present correct, truthful experiences regarding their mistreatment. People are often gaslit by saying what they're saying is incorrect or that they're interpreting the situation incorrectly. But no, this is just a really refined racist tactic that has been used against Black people, non-white people worldwide. You know, we have been completely devastated by racism, white supremacy in every area of people activity. But when we try to make that claim, oh, we are gaslit, or we are playing the race card, or we're making everything about race, when white people are the only group in the known universe to have ever organized themselves behind a race and use this race concept to dominate the entire globe. It's a very dangerous term, race card. So did anyone want to share thoughts on race card, or even the first word, that is mentioned in this section that we're covering preferences.
I have a quick little story about the race card. I remember I went to the store one day to buy supplies, and I remember the price, and then I just bought one item, actually, not supplies, one item. And the person behind the cashier was non-white, non-black. And I went the next day and asked. I got the same thing, and it was a different person at the store, but the price was more expensive. And I told him, I said, you're not gonna black tax me. I know the price of this. And then he pretended like he didn't know what I was talking about. And then I told him, yeah, stop being racist. And then he said, I'm not being racist. You're being racist. And to me, I feel like that was a small encounter, but it's similar to if someone accuses you, if I accuse someone of being racist, and they immediately respond with calling me a racist, it just creates more confusion, especially if the person is non-white. And I was way more confused at the time. But instead of calling the non-white person racist, I should have just said, "You're practicing racism by black taxing me." And for those who don't know, black tax is when the non-white people who run these stores in our communities enhance the price because they assume that all black people are stupid.
Thank you for the input, Mr. Sir. I think a more refined approach would have been, calling a non-white person cannot be racist. They could be anti-black, but they can't be racist. In order to be racist, a person needs to be classified as white. So that's just a manifestation of anti-blackness, which manifests in an infinite amount of ways. But yeah, thanks for sharing. Really insightful as to how the mistreatment just comes in so many ways. And I'm sure many people classified as black are black tax out there knowing it just comes with the reality of being classified as black by white people who practice racism, white supremacy. Are there any more thoughts on any portions of the book? We don't have to go in order. I just
yeah, I'd like to comment on the race card portion. So there's a lot of things I was thinking about when I heard the race card. The first time I heard this term had to be in middle school. Oftentimes, for whatever reason, for non-constructive reasons, kid would say, "Oh, you're playing a race card." It also made me think. I don't know if I'm still co-host, but it made me think about that card game, Black Card Revoked. I don't know if anybody has heard about that game. I have it here on my screen. Let me see if I can't share it since I'm not.
Hold on. I don't know if you left and came back.
I did, so that's maybe why.
Okay. All right, you can share.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So there's this game called Black Card Revoked. I just recently played it. Unfortunately, not let me say play, but I researched it. I didn't even know that this was the box and it says original flavor. That is highly suspect. So basically the game is asking questions, basically, are you a stereotypical Black person? Are you what we expect you to be? Here are some of the questions. How long should a woman tolerate her man's unsuccessful rap career? Tacky. Which song is a staple at the family cookout? Tacky. Which celebrity has the biggest teeth? Tacky. Okay. So that's what I imagine when I think about the race card. Another instance of the race card was, I heard that come up a lot, especially during Obama's presidency. I think that is like when that term came back in the popularity. Oftentimes he would be accused of playing the race card. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick because I have a clip that I'd like to share as well. Stop sharing. pull it up. Okay. This clip's like 3 minutes. I hope it's not too long. Just
Not too long at all.
okay. So the clip that I'm about to show is titled "Ben Shapiro Destroys Race Baiting Congresswoman During Congressional Hearing on Campus Free Speech." So I don't know if I'm sure everybody's aware of who Ben Shapiro is. Definitely a racist suspect. I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip.
White privilege. And just this week, I had a conversation with Rachel Lazar, who's done some work, a Jewish American woman who's done some work on this area, as well as having extensive conversations with Dr. Greg Parks of Wake Forest University, who's also talked quite a bit about critical race theory. And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth, your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt to open a discussion.
Well, I think it's a demonstrable evidence that through society's demographics that being white has societal privileges that being black does not. But I
we can
am
talk
very
about how that
interested-
manifests, because that's
I'm
more
also
interesting,
interested in what you just said now, is that you would stand next to anyone who has this. So, Mr. Shapiro, my question to you is, for Ms. Dunston, the tying the noose around the campus and writing messages that target African-American young students, would you consider that hate speech, and then would you stand next to her and fight for her?
As I say, I would.
against that?
This is the first I'm hearing about it, honestly. But
Really?
Yeah. But from hearing about it, maybe because it's local. I mean, I'm from LA. But in any case, I'm more than happy to stand alongside her and fight whatever group was responsible for this. Not only more than happy. I mean,
All right, I've heard enough.
Look at him squirm. Oh, geez.
Yeah, the alarming part for me, I guess the interesting part for me, was basically the first statement before she like asked another question. Was basically he's saying, you're pulling a race card. Saying that I don't experience these things because of my skin color. That's you pulling the race card. That's an irrational, illogical argument. It just you pulling the race card. That's all I heard. A lot of words, buckets and buckets of words, but all in all, you're pulling the race card, illogical, irrational. I don't know if anybody has any comments on it.
Yeah, this is an excellent example of how the race card has been refined in 2010's era as race baiting. Instead of saying pulling a race card, they'll say a victim is race baiting. And Ben Shapiro is a master suspected racist, a master of deceit, and he spewed out a lot of jargon, nonsense words, combinations of useless words that he's trying to hide behind. And it's really tragic that Miss Plaskett is saying white privilege. I would call it white power or the system of white supremacy. But she does not yet have that understanding of what is actually taking place. So it makes it easier for Ben Shapiro to hide behind jargon. Really telling. And the likes of Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, they all use that same sort of jargon to pretend like white power does not exist, to pretend like being born with so-called white skin, being born classified as white does not give people white power. So yeah, this is just expected.
This is why Mr. Fuller says that you need a white person in order to prove racism. And then you have white people like Ben Shapiro, who says basically, well, when he told this Black female, if she can't substantiate these acts of racism, I believe he made the term, this is nothing more than casual in a club. Casual meaning coax with flattery. And I don't think being victims to racism, white supremacy is flattering. And it's very common that the white supremacists bring up the term, the race card, and it's very incorrect. And they should not complain about the use of the race card when recorded history has shown the evidence that you, the white supremacists, introduced it to the deck, meaning the world.
Correct. So I also have a clip, and I think it fits in. It really matches athletic ability. It also goes with ungrateful athletes. This guy's a stud. It kind of combines all of them. It's about 6 minutes, and I'm gonna.
I had another clip. I wanted to also comment again on this, but I see Evolutionist for Justice has his hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, please do.
It's a little hard to hear you.
Oh, you hear me?
Say again. It's still you sound like you're far away from your mic.
Better?
No.
Not at all.
Okay. While he's sorting out his technical.
Now can you hear me?
Oh, that's better.
Excellent. Yes.
Okay, cool. I switched to my tablet. Phone is acting up. But if we think just think about the context of why the conversation is happening at all. This Black female is approaching white supremacists, and she doesn't even have on the board, what is the definition of white supremacy racism when it's being practiced or not? What is it? She wouldn't even be in that position, but to argue with them. Like the code says, the only people we should be arguing with are the white supremacists. So we should expect when we appeal to them to acknowledge what, by their code, that's their first rule of law. We will not admit to the system of white supremacy racism, especially when they're trying to manipulate. Ben Shapiro says something real carefully that I noticed a lot of racists said this when I was in academic circles in Connecticut. They would always say, soon as racism was mentioned by a Black person or not, oh, so you think they're doing this because of your color, because you guys are Black? I started to question, or I would really just make a statement. No, I don't think white people do practice racism because we're Black. It's because they want to practice white supremacy racism. Every time I said that, the room would go silent, even if no one on the other side of the room was aware of the conversation. It was like they knew this nigger just took back the discourse, the domain of discourse. He's not talking about as if their color is why we do it. It's because we are white supremacists, racist, and we have a voracious appetite that's insatiable to practice white supremacy. So he switched in his blah, 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 deep dive, he was just stuttering. He switched the discourse to being racism is practiced because you guys are Black. So the problem is you're Black. You can't prove that a white person's intent is based on we're Black because that's illogical. It's not. It's based on who they are. It's because they're white supremacists. This is in them. It's not in us. We provide an opportunity for them to be who they already are, who they're dedicated to being. And in that context, if you approach a white supremacist group or panel, whatever names they got on them, it silences them, synchronized silence. They don't want to talk anymore. They will not stand behind you when you're saying, wait a minute, the white supremacists are the problem, not the black people that are the victims. And now we need to ask you white guys and girls, what are you doing to practice white supremacy? Conversation's over then, now it's time to fight.
That's something we learned about in simple sabotage. You know, one of a part of the white code is that when the enemy comes into the room, and the enemy in this case being people classified as non-white, when the enemy comes in the room, they're supposed to go silent. So it makes perfect sense how when a victim presents the truth, that they go straight to code, which is to go silent. You know, because that's part of their tactics, and it's really really telling of how the system operates. Geesh.
Also, Evolutionists for Justice brought up a good point. For me, they're not even really talking about racism, white supremacy. They're talking about whether white privilege exists, and that's something that the racist white supremacists created. So rather than racism, we can all agree exists. I mean, CNN talks about it all day long, so they know it exists. But once you start talking about white privilege, like how can you prove that exists? You know, so that's it's a, I guess, like a null conversation to even have. You know, you're not gonna win. So I also had another clip that I wanted to play.
I think Ray had wanted to chime in.
Okay.
I just wanted to say really quick, it would seem as if white privilege are the spoils of war.
Seems so. Again,
How can we say privilege comes from, if we do not acknowledge that in order to benefit a white person, right? A white person deliberately has to mistreat a person of color, in particular a black person. There is no privilege in, okay, we're not gonna rape this white person, we're gonna rape this nigger. That's not a privileged position. Okay, we're not gonna tell the truth to black babies, most vulnerable minds. We're gonna lie to them and tell white children mythical, dominant, superior viewpoints in so-called education. So there's no place for the word privilege.
Yeah.
The white man who invented it, he never said it was like some passive, partial, just physical or material benefit. He said it came directly with deliberately ignoring abuse.
Yeah, this is why if you're gonna use the P word, make sure it's power, because again, it's not a privilege to brain trash and manipulate an entire populace. That's a power. White people are not hiding behind privilege. They're not using privilege. They're using white power. So I appreciate those who understand and use the correct terminology. Tragically, many of us victims of racism, highly confused victims, we think the problem is privilege, and we have been trained to self-censor ourselves by using these illogical words to describe a very, very serious problem called racism, white supremacy.
One thing I'm mindful of is also the way the white supremacists that are refined tend to try to reduce us to talking about white supremacy as if them being white supremacists is innate in some so-called human, which we know that's impossible, human behavior. You're innately going to be against someone. So that nullifies, again, they have designed race. All race games, they're dominant in because they created the sphere of race. So I think they like to do that, trickle that into the conversation that, oh, it's only natural people are gonna have, differences because of color and culture. No, it's not natural. No, not at all.
Rayo said, evolutionists for justice.
Okay. I am going to share the next clip. Okay. Y'all see that?
Let's move on. There's a interviewed former Vice President Dick Cheney in Playboy magazine, in which he repeats a lot of things he said before about the president's foreign policy. He's not a fan of President Obama. He thinks he's weak when it comes to the war on terrorism and projecting U.S. strength around the world. But he also responds to a criticism that comes sometimes from the White House and sometimes from allies of the Attorney General Eric Holder, that a lot of the Republican criticism of those two leaders, the president and the Attorney General, are based on race. Listen to Dick Cheney. I think they're playing the race card, in my view. To say that we criticize or that I criticize Barack Obama or Eric Holder because of race, I just think it's obviously not true. My view of it is the criticism is merited because of performance or lack of performance, because of incompetence. It hasn't gotten anything to do with race. Certainly.
Okay. I don't care for the commentary after that, but I think I want to highlight that word incompetence. I think that that's very telling. I'm going to read this portion, this last piece from the book or the text. It says the race card term is a very dangerous statement, and it must not be trivialized because it is a brilliant and powerful two-word statement that obliterates the impact of racism. So I think by this racist suspect, Dick Cheney, saying that he believes that he's making these criticisms based on incompetence. For me, that says he doesn't believe Barack Obama is fit to lead. He feels that Barack Obama doesn't deserve the position that he has. Whatever you want to put in there, but I thought that this was very telling. I think that this fits into the race card portion of this text perfectly. Those are my comments for that.
Yeah, that's what a awesome way to just disregard an entire collective of people. And like the text said, it's a epic neutralizing tool because one other of hey, I think this system or this white person behind this system is practicing racism. You throw in that race card, it can really disarm a lot of people, especially the Black people who really don't understand that words are what hold this system together. And it's just really, very, very telling. It has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with race. Your racial classification dictates your entire existence from birth to the grave. So it has everything to do with race. And for a white person that's powerful and that's intelligent, as Dick Cheney, he knows he's just lying. He's just lying, or he's just lying. He's a lying psychopath, like many white people who choose to practice white supremacy. They are lying psychopaths who do not.
Maybe he's telling the truth. Remember, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing said in their patterns of reasoning, they practice racism, white supremacy. So he really told the exact truth. A Black male is incompetent to be and govern a white supremacist dictatorship worldwide. He's incompetent. He's unable. We should always doubt the competency of people of color, especially from the perspective of a white supremacist. It doesn't have anything to do with quote unquote race, because Dick Cheney is the white race. It has to do with that right there. Not Barack's designation, but the fact that Barack is not a part of their designation. So he's being honest. Eric Holder and Barack Obama could not be fully utilized to sustain the utmost white supremacist regime, of the utmost of the white supremacist regime. He couldn't satisfy both groups of white supremacists who wanted different international dictators towards people of color. They did a lot of, condoning of a lot of damage, but this man is being honest. They're not able to do all that we want to do. They're not as motivated.
I can see the truth sprinkled in with lies, but him saying it hasn't got anything to do with race. Even following counter-racist logic, what you said makes a lot of sense, but I think he's practicing immense deception nonetheless in his statements.
Yeah, I agree. He's a good one. He's a good liar.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know if this is like an interview with Playboy or Playboy magazine or something, but if so, that's very telling, because that whole area sex and You talk about the Playboy Mansion, that it's a place where white men have historically gone to fulfill their incorrect desires. So it's just really telling that this interview may be coming from Playboy magazine, which is very telling about how Dick Cheney spends his time and energy behind the scenes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a great observation by Abolitionists for Justice. Definitely puts it into perspective, and it puts it in a proper context as well, I believe. I think oftentimes other people may say, "Oh well, Dick Cheney's a conservative. He's a Republican. They're Obama's a Democrat. They're always arguing. They always don't have. They always have conflicting views or whatnot. So this type of behavior is normal. I believe that's completely false and that's deceiving, and not only serves to confuse victims. I think under a system of racism, white supremacy, everything needs to be put under its proper context. In this case, racism. So those are my final comments for that. I do have one more video, and then I have 2 videos that I wanted to show for athletic ability, but I have one more video. If I could go ahead and share that one.
There's a topic out there today, and this is a race topic, so I feel very comfortable with you talking about it, probably more than me, that Serena Williams is number 2 in endorsements to Maria Sharapova in tennis. Now, she makes a fortune. She makes like $12 million a year in endorsements. That's more than Peyton Manning. But there's a lot of people that say she should be number 1 overwhelmingly, and it is race and only race, and that's why she's not the dominant number 1 endorsement person in women's tennis. I said I think race is absolutely part of it. To what degree, I don't know. African Americans have been absolutely embraced in America. Tiger, Magic was more popular than Bird. What do you make of it? I mean, how big of a deal is it to you? Are you bothered that she's not the dominant number 1 women in endorsements?
Not really. I mean, there's guys in the NBA got more commercials than LeBron or Kobe. And I think it's more that she's an attractive girl. Not saying Serena's not attractive. It goes back to Anna Kournikova. That's what's considered pretty. So companies, first of all, you don't even know what she's making her money on. Maybe it is. First of all, it might be some money she's making overseas. But I think more than anything, that Sharapova girl is a very pretty girl. Serena. She's really muscular, so people might hold that against her. You hear people saying rude things about her body. I think she got a fantastic body myself. I just get offended when everybody always plays the race card over some silly where somebody makes $40 million instead of $30 million. When race really comes into play, people get sick of people crying wolf. So I try not to ever use the race card unless I'm 100% sure. I mean, it makes great talk radio, but it can't be proven.
That's a good point.
It can't be proven. I mean, like I say, it doesn't have anything with who's number 1. LeBron's the best player. No, and I'm not bashing on anybody, but I think Chris Paul.
Oh, God.
And Blake Griffin get more commercials than Kevin Durant. Is that because of race? I mean, you can't be just throwing the race thing out there. Listen, Serena's a beautiful girl, but some people like Kournikova look better. And now they like Sharapova's look better. That's like, because if you want, the highest paid girl should be that Mr. Copeland girl. If you want to talk about perfect bodies and looks and everything, she should be like number 1 ahead of all of them.
Yeah.
But I don't like when people throw the race card out there like they have proof. I mean, you can think that, but you can't prove it.
Let's move on. There's an interview, former Vice.
Wow.
Okay, I'd like to hear the panel's thoughts on that clip, if they have any, before I share my thoughts.
I think that's a stellar example and tragic example of how confusion can just erode a Black male's ability to make logical observations as to what is happening. And also goes to show how maybe Charles Barkley has been successfully trained to, like many of us have been successfully trained to put the white woman at the very top and a Black female at the very bottom. Because of course, if you're going off, Prestige and Serena's Serena Williams are definitely what I would say the best tennis player to ever come into the known universe. But she's still not getting her I don't know, her rewards, her just rewards. She's still always coming second, in some way, shape, or form to this white woman. But that's to be expected. And Charles Barkley, he's the kind of victim that white people truly appreciate, because he's regurgitating the race card. He's regurgitating the race card, which is what Khari Enaharo talks about a lot. How we are taught these race code words, and then we use them to further sabotage ourselves, our other victims of racism, non-white people. So it's really telling on his thinking, and I can see why in the sports entertainment field he is very much appreciated by white people, because he's out spewing stuff like this. And other folks, please chime in. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, I guess this would be a good way to get some of the what is the term called? Athlete.
Athletic ability.
No,
I want
it's
to quick
right
comment
there.
on that. I missed the last.
Right. Okay. There's a few of them actually. So, it's either I feel like Charles. I agree with what 0526 said. Charles Barkley is certainly a victim of racism that white people love to pop and showcase, because they regurgitate the same information that they've been given, and they're like truly great. They've been trained well by the white supremacists, and they have no problem speaking for them and defending racism. And the fact that he said there's no way to prove it, I think he can prove racism exists just by filming a non-white person walking down the street and just seeing how they're treated by literally everyone they interface with. And it made me think of the ungrateful athletes, the ones that are usually removed from being showcased and led on the path of being these ex-millionaires, ex-stars, to really living like poor lives. And there's so many examples of inner city athletes, people who I guess been propped up, taken from their environments, and then made stars, and then have landed back on the streets on drugs. They have to be rehabilitated. And I'm not a sports person, so I can't name anyone by names, but it was a truly Charles victim. And I don't think the race card word works anymore. So maybe we should just not use this. And when we are expressing ourselves about the system of racism, white supremacy. Yeah.
I think the first part it reveals everything. This white supremacist presented the lie as if a black person would know more about if white supremacy is being practiced than he would. Codification, or just a basic understanding that white supremacy means that white people are the experts of white supremacy. Any black person should never take a question about is something racist from a white person. That's an insult to your intelligence just off the top. And then that's why Charles Barkley is paraded. Sex with white women does deteriorate your brain computer. It does. It's real, it's true. You justify the tyranny and terrorism of white people. You justify their mistreatment of black people from that act alone, just from the sex. It perverts the mind. And the people who do it are hoping that they somehow ease the pain of the system of white supremacy with that soothing white lotion. But that's what Mr. Barkley, he's being victimized in that very interview by the white man lying to him and telling him, like he said, I feel comfortable talking to you. And then he was like snickering the whole time, like a conniving wolf. Like he was like, yeah, keep speaking more lies and confusion. So that right there, and then to have a conversation about white supremacy, and it starts with payment to a so-called tennis player. We're not talking about murder and rape. I refuse to talk about white supremacy on the terms of sports or payment or jobs. We're not talking about murder and rape and righteous retribution for that. I'm not talking to you about white supremacy, racism.
Very, very well said.
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I find it very interesting too. Every time the topic of athletes or even sports comes up, it's always an issue when we talk about race within the sports like industry. And it's because they don't want to, it's almost like they can't say anything about it because they enjoy watching the animals play out there. And they're like, okay, well, this is the only thing you're good for. Because even when you're growing up, the first thing someone says to you, like, oh, what sport do you play if you're Black? Or if you have a height or a weight, they're like, oh, you should play basketball because your height or your weight. Oh, football, or oh, you should be in volleyball or run track. You look, you run fast. So always like these, the only way they can describe a Black individual or even just incorporate quote unquote like individuals within like society, I guess. Like, oh, how can I talk to you about something and how can I make you feel part of the society? And they almost sell you on, well, if you're good at sports or if you watch sports like often, even if you're not on a team and you watch it often, it's like you're important too. You're part of this this sport experience. So it's just very interesting. But when we start having conversations about race within it, it's all jumbled. Everyone starts getting squirmy in their seats, or there's always these lots of words, especially for the interview that Kwaku shared with us. The beginning went so fast. There were so many words in the first opening statement where it's like I could decode so many words in this statement, but it went so fast. And I feel like oftentimes that's how it goes, especially when you're listening to sports commentators during a sports game. It goes so fast as for entertainment, but no one is decoding actually what they're saying. Because it almost feels like, are these animals out there? You're talking like these are animals. Like if you hear a horse race and they're like betting on horse races and going fast and all these things, it's almost the same commentary as for basketball. But the only thing they're doing differently is not betting on money. They're just like, oh, let's amplify how many shots this person has or what they can do on the court. And everyone's smiling and cheering and having a grand old time, but no one's really listening or paying attention. They're just being entertained.
Yeah, the many just incorrectness of sports entertainment. Is why I think I've always had that aversion to the area. I think that's makes sense. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Kwaku.
Yeah, just to share, can I be heard?
Mm-hmm.
Just to share my comments. I agree with a lot of what the panel had to say. I thought that it was very interesting, especially how he kind of opened it up. He said, you know, I don't feel comfortable talking about this. And it seems like this seems like a common tactic of racists when it comes to sports, especially racism in sports, is that they'll have victims open up the floor to just start spewing, the confusion, kind of like what Charles Barkley's doing here. And then a lot of the incorrect things that Charles Barkley is saying, the racist is agreeing with it. So I think that this is a common tactic that happens a lot that I think many victims are unaware of or confused about. That was really it. Apart from that, Charles Barkley, everything he said, BGQ. I don't care what BGQ, but definitely this was planned and orchestrated.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware that Charles Barkley was being raped by a white woman, but from Evolution for Justice comments, I suspect he is. That is the reality. So it makes his BGQ more evident, I suspect. So this clip right here really touches everything: athletic ability, ungrateful athletes, and even probably inner city youth. And this guy's a stud. So I'm gonna play it. I'm playing it on one. I'm playing it sped up to avoid the copyright, and also so we don't have to spend so much time on it. But I think it's very, very constructive and understanding just the difference is how Black athletes are discussed and white athletes are discussed.
Most memorable moments in his career. Not his 10 best plays. I didn't call it that. Not his 10 greatest catches. Not his 10 most memorable moments in his career.
There is one man in sports you do not bet against.
Bill Belichick.
And his name is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady.
My point was, once you start looking at his 10 biggest moments, it's a lot of non-football nonsense.
Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. He turned into Michael Jordan in sheep's clothing. He turned right into that cold-blooded assassin disguised as the corny dad who lives next door.
The problem is they got the greatest football player ever, and whenever it looks like he's slowing down, he does tap into that reservoir of greatness.
I mean, Tom Brady spends his off seasons with Edelman, and they already have timing.
You do it because you're internally motivated, and that's why Tom Brady's great. Double standards in sports, they exist. In Odell Beckham's GQ interview, he was asked and answered, do you think race plays a part in the double standard you're dealing with? To which he answered, race plays into everything, whether we want to believe it or not. Popovich said it.
We live in a racist country that hasn't figured it out yet.
Especially in the media.
He is extremely, almost crazy competitive.
That is Skip Bayless, host on FS1, discussing Tom Brady. How did he talk about Odell?
If he doesn't get his numbers or his shine, then he's going to go crazy and act out, and he's going to pout.
Bayless on Brady.
He screwed up and he knew it.
No, he didn't.
And he was furious with himself.
Bayless on Odell.
No, bad idea. There's no way I'm going to invest that much money in a diva wide receiver.
But the buck doesn't stop with Skip. It continues.
Tom Brady's always been a team guy. So if Tom Brady blows up on the sideline once a year, I know he's blown up for the right reason.
That's another FS1 host, Colin Coward. Colin has a different view on Odell.
Is it me, or is OBJ gone from circus catch to now just more circus?
Brady.
He is all about the silver. He's all about that uniform.
Odell.
Can be a little high maintenance, needy, and selfish sometimes, because that's what he's shown me.
And even this on Odell Beckham.
My point was, once you start looking at his 10 biggest moments, it's a lot of non-football nonsense. There's the catch, and that's just a bunch of Paris hotel room fighting with a net, peeing in the end zone. I'm like, we've gone from circus catch to circus act.
Never bringing up a thing on Brady off the field. Like, say, his support of a white supremacist, calling Nazis fine people, throwing kids in cages, separating families, loathing the media, and empowering a global threat. This isn't worthy of a Brady memorable moment, Colin? And if Trump was president, I hope so. That would be great. There would be a putting green on the White House lawn. I'm sure of that. What about Brady destroying his cell phone in a case of cheating at the highest level? Speaking of cheating, how about the distraction of Brady's personal trainer, Alex Guerrero? Guerrero is known as Brady's body coach, his spiritual guide, counselor, pal, nutrition advisor, trainer, massage therapist, and family member. So they're tight. Teammate Julian Edelman worked closely with Guerrero, Brady's boy, even calling him Mr. Miyagi. Edelman tested positive for steroids and served a suspension. I ask rhetorically, how would mainstream media treat this if it were Odell Beckham's trainer? How about Brady's trainer trying to split the organization by turning players against Bill Belichick via Patriots players openly discussing with coaches, staff, and trusted advisors whether to follow Brady and Guerrero or the team? Do we risk alienating the NFL's most powerful coach or risk alienating the NFL's most powerful quarterback? Where was the coverage of Brady's BFF being investigated by the Federal Trade Commission? Guerrero was part of an infomercial for a product called Supreme Greens, which claimed to be able to cure cancer, AIDS, multiple sclerosis, and Parkinson's disease. The FTC debunked that claim and others made by Guerrero in the infomercial, including the fact that he was a doctor, as a sham. But wait, the FTC investigated Guerrero a second time. NeuroSafe, a preventive measure for concussions and sports-related head injuries, as well as a business partner in Tom Brady. The label on the product stated that it was powered by TB12. Does this not qualify as a distraction? As with Guerrero's Supreme Greens product, the claims were overblown and unproven. The FTC concluded that Guerrero had no scientific evidence to back his extraordinary claims. NeuroSafe was shut down. There is a long history from the media via harsh critics of black athletes, for which their white counterparts are celebrated. It is displayed on magazine covers like LeBron James and Tom Brady's wife, Gisele Bündchen. Vogue's quest to highlight the differences between superstar athletes and supermodels only successfully reinforces the animalistic stereotypes frequently associated with black athletes, writes Jamil Hill. As Hill points out, the blogosphere have noted draw a striking resemblance to the racially charged image of King Kong enveloping his very fair-skinned lady love interest. But hang on, how about David Beckham on the cover of Vogue? A far different story being told. LeBron James puts it best. If it's Tom Brady, if it's Aaron Rodgers, if it's Peyton Manning, and we're doing the same stuff, the same exact stuff, I'm talking about a phone is out, we're like, yo, get that out of my face. I'm with my family. If we're out with our family and we say that stuff and somebody posts it, and if Aaron Rodgers or one of those guys say that stuff and they post it, somebody's going to be like, hey, you guys should respect Aaron Rodgers. Throughout history, the examples have been plentiful. Maya Angelou once said, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. This is not a time for the shut up and dribble movement. Put the shoe on the other foot. Read the history of oppression and how the traditionalist white media is used to tarnish and disenfranchise the black athlete. Odell is the messenger. Just don't shoot him. If you'd like to hear more thought,
Circus catch to
All right, so there's a lot of information here. I'm going to try to share this image right here first before I start talking about it. You see, there's an article in this book that says time to take out the trash, and referring to black male runners. And I'm going to read a little bit from page 80. The classic example, this is referring to athletic ability. The classic example is the description back in the 1980s of National Basketball Association star Larry Bird, that he was so great and smart that he had radar in the back of his head so that he could see the basketball. As great as Michael Jordan was, little emphasis was ever at least publicly given to the power of his intellect. It was always his competitive nature, strong desire to win, amazing hang time, spectacular dunks, and body moves. We rarely hear mention of Jordan's incredible ability to think and intellectualize the complexities of life and the game. Basketball is a game of quick and accurate thinking at a high level of speed and intense interaction. However, when listening to or watching the games, the most frequently used is that he or she has great athletic ability. It is similar to statements of a white sportscaster who once said that blacks were bred to become good athletes. This contrasts sharply with the usual sack of words used to describe white athletes with their cerebral approach to the game. In effect, a white athlete is a thinker, a human being, and an athletic performer. He is a whole individual. The black athlete is a superior animal bred for high performance on the field. Off the field, he is a criminal, intellectually deficient, and mentally inferior. This is so close to the thinking of the white slave masters in the Old South. Black men and women were bred to have babies and do the manual labor, but not develop superior intellects. So I think a lot of these sentiments were presented in this 6-minute video, especially I paused randomly, but just from right here, from circus catch to circus act, and what kind of creatures are caught on planet Earth? You catch animals, and what kind of creatures are in the circus? Also animals. So again, the behavior pattern of referring to black males as animals are freaks deserving to be in zoos or circuses is still going on, and it's so in our faces, but the majority of us do not understand like that is happening. And just the imagery alone just goes to show you, how they're attempting to present Odell Beckham as a non-entity, as a creature of some sorts, while Tom Brady is like this super American superhero quarterback individual. Well, it just goes to show the worship of white people, especially in the sports area, and also the degrading of black males who, without them, this sport would not be as popular and as financially successful as it is. But yeah, comparing Odell Beckham to like a circus act, is very racist. It's very telling of them thinking that Odell Beckham is some sort of creature belonging in a zoo or a circus, while Tom Brady is deserving of being on a pedestal, having people worship him. So really tacky. And also, I'm gonna mention there was a moment where some white guy was saying how he wouldn't invest in a diva wide receiver, feminizing Odell Beckham, and also saying he's not worth an investment, which ties in super with this part from page 81, where it says, okay, Brown, referring to Jim Brown and the other black bidders. Maybe I'm gonna read the paragraph above this as well, so there's more clarity. This is reflected even in the number of managerial and ownership positions in professional sports. During the bidding for the purchase of the Cleveland Browns, there was an example of how athletic ability and the ability to think carries over football playing days. Football great Jim Brown played his whole career for the Cleveland Browns, and in his bid to purchase the new franchise, he was rebuffed with some of the worst white radio talk show commentary ever aired, which bordered on racist slander. Brown and the other black bidders were dismissed early because their bids were not serious and they did not have the capacity to run a complex organization. The franchise went to a group with no visible blacks in ownership roles, despite the fact that more than 60% of the NFL football players are black athletes. The term athletic ability discards the idea of brain power because it says that blacks are naturally born athletes. This casts doubt on their intellectual ability. So very, yeah, I think this 6-minute clip has a little bit of these sentiments embedded in it, with just that guy saying that Odell Beckham is not worth an investment. But are there any comments regarding athletic ability or any other portions of the text?
This made me think of, I did remember one name of a athlete, also racially showcased, a victim of racism, white supremacy, Lamar Odom. I remember how he was dragged through the media in a similar way and called a crackhead and all these names, just mistreated. And what really stood out to me is how LeBron James is conscious of something that's happening to him. So I like that he was able to compare how the white males were treated within the society and how he was treated as a black male athlete. So that was some type of constructive stuff I did get from one of the players, one of the few basketball players actually who's married to someone who looks like them, versus the others who have opted to be arranged in something more tragic.
Yeah, Odell Beckham also mentioned that everything's about race, which is correct. And it's really rare to see such an understanding from a black athlete, from a black male, which is always constructive to see. Everything is most certainly about race and leads to racism. Any more comments?
This portion of the text reminds me of how black athletes are highly animalized. TopEndSports.com reports that one of the most well-known man versus animal challenges involves American sprinter Jesse Owens, who resorted to racing against horses to earn an income after winning gold at the 1936 Olympics. And let's see. Such stats did not deter Chicago Browns receiver Devin Hester and Chris Johnson, I suspect both black males, of the Tennessee Titans who raced against a pair of cheetahs for a documentary for National Geographic's Wild Big Cat Week. And then we also have here sprinter Sean Crawford, black male, who races a giraffe from the Man vs. Beast TV show in 2003. We have here on the sports science TV show, NFL wide receiver Dennis Northcutt, black male, raced against the fastest animal on two legs, an ostrich. So this is a common tactic amongst the white supremacists to animalize black people, and we should be very aware of that.
Thank you, Ray. I've never heard of such racist antics, but I'm not surprised. I'm going to play another clip. It all relates to athletic ability, but this one is I think it fits in. This guy's a stud. I'm going to read a little bit, and I'm going to play the clip from page 81. This code is the same as the phrase athletic ability. The stud word is a throwback to chattel slavery system when black men and women were bred as cattle. This was a standard practice during chattel slavery. Black men were used to impregnate black females to produce more slaves to raise cotton and take care of the master. The best conditioned slaves brought the highest prices at the slave auction. The breeding process, idea, philosophy have continued in competitive sports. So let me see. Let me get the clip up. One second.
I thank white supremacist commentators in sports because they were the first ones who made me fed up with white supremacy racism to where it was in every comment. So I appreciate them because every day they're just like Fox or CNN. All they do is speak in racist code and then have black people who are ignorant of white supremacy refine those codes so that we can swallow.
Precisely. Look at how this white woman, suspected racist, pay attention to how she discusses and degrades LeBron and pretty much every black person in this clip. Very telling, and easily the term jock can be replaced with stud. But I'm gonna play the clip.
We're going to create a new banner. This is a Jump Doc alert. NBA superstar LeBron James is talking politics again.
I know you guys are excited to see her. I didn't know you guys would be excited to see me too, but thank you. As much as you guys would love to hear from me, I would much rather love to hear from our next president, Ms. Hillary Clinton.
Now a historic moment. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Donald Trump wins the presidency.
And this time it's R-rated. Here's his barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical take on President Trump in a new ESPN podcast.
The number one job in America, the point of person, is someone who doesn't understand the people and really don't give a about the people.
But wait, there's more gripping insight. ESPN host Khari Champion asked James and fellow NBA star Kevin Durant about what she described as Trump's racist comments.
I feel like our team as a country is not ran by a great coach.
It's not even a surprise when he says something. It's not even a surprise. It's like laughable. It's like
it's laughable.
It's laughable and it's scary.
But it's also scary because I shouldn't be numb to your racist comments.
Right.
I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
I'm numb to this commentary. Like, must they run their mouths like that? Unfortunately, a lot of kids and some adults take these ignorant comments seriously. Look, there might be a cautionary lesson in LeBron for kids. This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early to join the NBA. And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble. We'll be right back.
Any comments?
I mean, they're trying again. These people are super refined. If you pick LeBron James's comments, he's obviously confused about white supremacy. Obviously, thinking that politics is one group of racists over, not even understanding that one group of racists over another, and that's not even real. That's not even real. It's just a game they play for entertaining themselves, I think, and for money. You know, it's a sport. So for them to pick that, again, you're reducing everything down to, they know we're gonna say, okay, that's obvious racism. She's saying shut up and dribble. I think he should shut up. I don't even give a damn what he says, or anybody in that less than 1% of 1% of 1% of black slaves. I don't care what any of them say. I don't care what a white supremacist says about them. It's just ridiculous to even have that as a talking point about white supremacy. Man, that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Evolutionist for Justice. I think this falls into the ungrateful athletes as well. You know, that whole shut up and dribble is and her remarks in general also have the actually, I'm just gonna read it from page 83 because it's I believe it's the sentiment right here. The media was full of statements like, who really cares about the NBA anyway, or nobody watches the games until there are 3 minutes left in the game. This code language to play down the importance of Black basketball, of the Black basketball star in the national psyche. In the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, Australia, the NBA players were called a disgrace for playing a close game with the all-white Lithuanian basketball team. When decoded, it means, look, you Negroes, we pay you a ton of money to bounce a ball. This is what you were bred to do. How dare you lose to a second-rate group of white boys who will be scientists and doctors and only play basketball on the weekend? So, and back to the clip, you know, this white woman surely thinks that along these lines, because she does not think that LeBron James is deserving of his VGQ to say whatever he wants about the system that has retarded him so, confused him so. But it's very telling. And also, back to this guy's a stud. I need to read this paragraph really quickly just to show the very different comparisons that Tom Brady would have received had he made these remarks. And it says here on page 82, the white slave master never worried about the slave's mind. Intellectual development of the slave was illegal and punishable by death. This was the basic breeding and conditioning process of Black males. It has continued in the sports industry. When Black athletes excel in a particular sport, the language is altered to resemble the kind of communication reserved for specialized animal breeding. By contrast, the language is never used when big white males dominate a sport. George Mikan, the star of the NBA in the early 1950s, when it was dominated by white male basketball players, was never called a series of animal connoted names. He was described as a gentle giant. You know, so he's a gentle giant, right? But LeBron James is the King Kong of basketball. You know, and remember the imagery that we showed earlier from that clip where him and Tom Brady's wife. So it's very, very telling on how this system perceives Black males and treats Black males and Black females as well, and this sports area, which is why a really important suggestion is, you know, really if one is in sports, you know, I don't even know, just get out of sports or use your time and energy within sports to counter racism, which from what I've seen doesn't seem to happen all too much, unfortunately. And yeah, it's tragic because this whole section reminds me of my time in Berkeley. There was I think he played football for Berkeley, and you could tell that that he really actually let me go to the article here. So this is an article discussing how a lot of student athletes have really poor reading abilities, haven't been taught how to read correctly or understand. And I remember having this individual and one of my group projects was a black male football player. And not only could he not read, but he had absolutely no like communication skills. He couldn't even like talk to us without like him being, I don't know, super nervous and having a really apparent stutter. And I'm like, damn, in my head, I'm thinking, you're like an athlete. Should they have you like with tutors and like, you know, preparing you? Because you're also like in college too. But nope, he was really just there to play ball and cruise through the university. He was not getting the correct like tutoring he needed to excel there, which is why he did it. You know, he literally just played ball and that's it. But this is the article discussing just what I'm saying, how a lot of black males will find themselves at these schools and they read like fifth graders, you know, and it's very common. Very common. I'm just gonna read. Actually, no, you can find the article very easily. This is still going on. This is from 2014, but I suspect it's only gonna be getting worse, especially that us having spent almost 2 years with this Zoom learning that a lot of education centers have been doing. They've been doing a lot of learning over the screens, and I suspect we're gonna have another generation of Black people who know how to shoot a ball through a net, rather than knowing how to decode information, understand information, and just read. You know, something very fundamental. You know, my uncle, who's now deceased, went his entire existence without knowing how to read. So it's not as common. It's not as uncommon as we would like to believe. It's very common amongst Black people that and I'm sure now other non-white people, but super tacky and terroristic that we exist in a system that would much rather us be able to, you know, get a ball and a goal than knowing how to read, which is very essential to understanding how the system works, I believe. I may be incorrect. Yeah. I'm just gonna read inner city athletes because LeBron James, in this clip, he was called a jock, which could be when being used against a Black male, it's definitely racially coded. So this is from page 83, inner city athletes. This is a term used to describe wild, savage, and untamed young Black athletes. The racial code phrase inner city denotes a litany of racial images designed to imply that Black males are criminals, thugs, rapists, murderers, uncivilized, and show backward behavior in any society. The inner city athlete is an undisciplined athlete who cannot follow coaching. They cannot read or write and is just in college to get to the NBA or NFL. The nigger jock from the inner city is the worst kind of athlete. He is not a Duke University Black athlete, which decoded means more civilized than his darker brother. This is in parentheses, and acts more like white boys on campus. So combining all the information that we've seen in regards to the clips, we can see the sentiment being placed on LeBron James, who did come from a poor environment created by racism and white supremacy. And yeah, he definitely would fit this bill if a white person was describing him. So we have ungrateful athletes, inner city athletes. That guy is a stud, and athletic ability, which is like huge examples of why we should not spend a lot of time and energy in sports. You know, read chapter 5 of the ISIS papers to really understand like what it means to throw a basketball through a white net and what it does to the brain computer to constantly throw balls through nets. And aside from the ISIS papers, I've noticed that a lot of times I see people watching sports, men, white men, and black males. I always see them like with their hands and their crotch on their crotch area as they're watching these black males running around sweaty and throwing these balls around. It's always very suspicious as to why is there a hand in your crotch while you're watching these black males do this. Very bizarre, incorrect behavior, and just sports is just. I've always hated sports growing up. I never thought the purpose of it. I was placed in football once upon a time in my early youth, and I did like one day of it, and I never went back because I was not gonna tolerate being yelled at it's just really stupid and silly. We should not perpetuate sports. We should not have offspring and saying he's gonna be a basketball player or he should play football. I'm sure many of us have heard this. He should play football. He should be shooting hoops. I'm sure we all heard this retardation spewed from fellow victims, but it just should not be happening. We should really get out of sports. Yeah.
For this section, specifically inner city athletes, reading it, I was like, I think this is one of those terms where I've never really heard it before. I know what it is, but I've never really heard it. But then I realized, like, I have heard that term consistently throughout my life, especially in movies. And one movie in particular that comes to mind is The Blind Side, specifically talking about people who cannot read or who are just bred to play football. I'm sure everyone has seen The Blind Side. Unfortunately, they're a very tragic situation to be in as a victim. But I realized that these inner city athletes, while I've not personally interacted with that term, it's something that I hear consistently through films and through media. So that's what I had for the inner city athlete. I did have a clip for ungrateful athletes as well. Oh, sir, you gotta see that one. that's a racist classic. Okay.
Go ahead. You have you can share it.
Okay, let me go ahead and set it. Okay. Here we go. Can everybody see that? I wanted to stop real quick to just talk about what had transpired right there. So this is a clip of a Brazilian soccer player playing in Ukraine. Ukraine is in Europe, completely white Urugu community. So the non-white player was experiencing overt racist violence, and he reacted towards it. The referee sent him off the field for his reaction. For me, that says, how dare you react to this overt racist violence? You should be grateful for even being allowed on the field. You should be grateful for having the opportunity to entertain these good old white folk up there. How dare you? And now this is the conference, the little press conference afterwards. Pay attention to the words he said.
Особенно всех тех, которые страдают расизмом, в частности тех ребят, которые пострадали сегодня, потому что и все вместе мы должны бороться против этого.
Okay, so some of the words that were said, I find oftentimes that when this kind of stuff happens, but when the white people come out and they are talking about it, they often talk about, you know, fighting against it, but never ending it or stopping it. That's a consistent action that I see from them. Any thoughts or comments? I do have another clip. That one more.
Can you go back to his quote?
The non-white individual's quote, or the
yeah, right there. He says, "I will never shut up in such a inhumane and despicable act. My tears were of indignation, repudiation, helpless that I could do nothing at that moment." I think this is a very, very telling example of why the importance of understanding racism and white supremacy, what it is and how it works, because you know we often react very, very emotionally to racism instead of reacting logically and having, you know, already a code that allows us to counter the racial aggression and not exert so much you know, hardship or heartache or just feeling incorrectness because we don't know what to do about it. But yeah, feeling helplessness, I'm sure that's a feeling that most victims have under the system of white supremacy, which is why we spend so much time trying to be comfortable and distracted from the problem of white supremacy. So yeah, I think this is really telling on the collective of non-white people, you know, and it's really, really tragic. Racial white supremacy is very, very inhumane, which is why there's no such thing as a current living human being. No one is allowed to be humane to one another. We are trained to hate each other, dislike each other, and just spread animosity and nonsense to one another. So I hope that Mr. Dantisk, I do hope that the creator allows him to, you know, gravitate towards the works of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Neely Fuller Jr. So he's able to spread that amongst his team, so they're able to, like, you know, effectively counter that behavior. But sports being so powerful and white people being so powerful, I can only hope. Go ahead, Ms. B.
So going back a little bit to The Blind Side, the character or that the story is based on, Michael Orr, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. They tried to portray him as illiterate in the movie. He was not illiterate. He didn't like his portrayal in the movie, and I could understand why, because it made him seem like, you know, a dumb, illiterate person, or it was just a very tacky, trashy movie, and how they portrayed the victim. Going to boxing, talking about Mike Tyson and how, you know, he's a heavyweight of the world, but yet he was portrayed as someone who was dumb or ignorant, of less intelligence. But in order to box, you have to be able to, it's a mental game. It's also a mental game. And nobody said that when Mike Tyson was boxing. He was just portrayed as this brute. And it was very unfortunate how he was treated in that arena. Yes, we need to get out of boxing. We need to get out of sport. Yes, it's good as far as exercise wise, but other than that, no. They just white people see us as animals. We're not even human to them. We're nothing. We're things. So yes, we need to get out of sports. Please do not encourage your children, your offspring, into sports. Encourage them to use their mind. I'll mute my mouth for now.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on add to what Ms. B was saying. I'm sure the non-white athlete who experienced over racial violence, you know, he's for sure confused about the relationship that he has. I'm sure he thinks that when he scores these goals, that these racist suspects love him, adore him. they treat him well. And then, but for me, I see it as they just believe he's a useful stud in the moment. And then at the point in time when he, I guess, disappoints them by, acting out like that, you're, for lack of a better word, you're a nigger again, unfortunately. I did have another clip, my final clip. This one has to do with athletic ability. I'm gonna go ahead and share it.
Io non vedo in Italia attualmente un giocatore come Lukaku in nessun'altra squadra, né nella Juve, nell'Inter, nel Milan, nella Roma, nella Lazio, tutto. Secondo me è uno dei più forti, secondo me è uno dei più forti, a me piace moltissimo, perché ha forza, perché è il sosia di Zapata dell'Atalanta. Esatto. Questi hanno qualcosa in più degli altri, non c'è niente da fare. E poi è un uomo che alla fine gol li fa. E poi questo ti trascina la squadra, questo nell'1 contro 1 ti uccide, se gli vai contro cadi per terra, o c'hai 10 banane qui per mangiare che gliele dai, se no non più chiaro.
Okay, so this Italian this racist suspect is talking about Romelu Lukaku. I'm gonna pull up non-white. I'll pull up a picture of both Lukaku and Zapata, the other non-white male that he mentioned. But something in sports, especially in soccer in Europe, whenever bananas are very much what's the word I'm looking for, associated with racism and Black players in Europe. So I think it's incredibly telling, and I think he's being completely honest about how he feels about the players. But oftentimes during racist events in soccer, the crowd will throw bananas at these players to indicate that they are like animals. Here essentially, I believe he's saying that these players can't think; they're motivated entirely by bananas. I could be wrong, but I think that's exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, and just the analogy, or the just analogy or metaphor using bananas, you better, if you have bananas, you better give it to him because the monkey's going crazy. He's a crazy monkey on the field, It's just really telling, like what Helen just said. They see us as animals. I would say less than animals, are really advanced. When we were working for them, yeah, they treat us like sophisticated animals, but when we are on their we are not working for them, we're trying to solve this problem, we are often treated worse than animals because they have albino porcupines and currently in round the clock care, but Black people worldwide can't get sufficient food, medical treatment, or housing. So really telling of how we are treated and viewed as a system of white supremacy. It will only take an effective number of Black people to understand this and do what needs to be done about it. We don't need every single Black person on the planet to solve this problem. We just need an effective number. So please, Black people, non-white people who come across this broadcast, please begin to get serious. And to go to producejustice.com to buy the code book, pick up the Race Code War from a Black bookstore or Amazon if you can't find it there. ISIS papers, ton of books we should be studying that allow us to understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works.
Yeah, agreed. So these are the non-white males that were the topic of discussion. It's also interesting how you're talking about one other Black male and then you go out of your way to bring another Black male into the conversation to also degrade him and say that he's also motivated by bananas and he doesn't have any brain cells, essentially. That is what I wanted to share about athletic ability. I think that they mainly talk about these two Black males because of their size and their frame. Both are, I guess, what you consider to be big individuals. So they definitely are. When you're talking about them, the words power, pace, speed, athletic ability all the racist word coded messages. That's all talked about when talking about these players. So
the etymology of the word sport is to literally carry the mind away from serious matters. So what are we really talking about when we converse on the phenomenon in Area 3 known as sports, Black people? Let's just cut straight to the chase.
Thank you for that, Ray. I did not know that. Jeez. Okay, so this word here, okay, this is inner city. So page 84, this word here reminds me of this organization that I used to participate in called a place called home. This is a organization in located in South Central Los Angeles, supposedly dedicated to providing, the inner city youth with a place they could call home where they could go there, play video games and watch TV. And if you ask for it, or if your victim parents ask for it, you can also be tutored there and math and reading and writing. I was tutored there once upon a time ago. I didn't think it was that constructive because the people who were supposed to be helping me didn't do that well of a job because I still didn't pick up on the material I was supposed to be learning. But anyways, it reminds me of a place called home. I'll talk about it more after I read it really quickly. Inner city youth. This is similar to the term inner city athletes. It is applied to all Black youth living in a certain physical location. When this term is used, it is designed to mean young savages, brutes, gang members, thieves, carjackers, drug dealers, uneducatables, retards, and upcoming rapists and gangbangers. This is association with the so-called hood, which really means Black hoodlums and is a word Black people should stop using to describe their community. Inner city youth is used to stereotype and label young Black children and make them feel ashamed of their surroundings, family, and community. They are automatically assumed to be the worst children on the planet because of where they live. And a place called home is a heavily guarded area. They have you would think you're walking into some sort of secret facility due to the amount of doors you have to go through. You have to get get let in, and it's very incorrect. I'm sure in white neighborhoods where white people live, their community organizations, I'm pretty sure you can walk just in. But even when white people attempt to do so-called good work with inner city youth, it still has the racist messages embedded in how it is set up. A place called home is just one of the probably millions of examples of organizations that use this terminology that we're here to help their inner city youth, but they're just providing them with a place to be further confused. Because when I was going there as a young child, my most memorable moments were just playing video games with the other Black children. We weren't reading books, we weren't studying racism, we weren't talking about racism, and that's what every child should have in their brain computer. What the hell is racism and how does it work? Because if you had that at an early age, many of us would not be willing to go out and kill a person who looks just like us, or rob a person who looks just like us, or put on a weave, or put on sagging pants, or dye our hair blonde. If we had an understanding of racism, what it is and how it works, we would diminish a lot of self-hate that eventually comes into our brain computer. But if you don't have that protection of simply understanding that you're in a world designed to make you hate yourself and people who look like you can easily be led to putting on giant eyelashes, dyeing your hair blonde, putting on ridiculous colored weaves, and thinking that it's making you more beautiful or more powerful, when it's only making you, putting you in a more pitiful state. So inner city youth is a really, really interesting concept. There's no such thing as it. It's just a code word to mean Black children who have been subjugated, terrorized, and victimized. And it goes hand in hand with this word urban. When I was more confused, I created a program for a middle school I used to attend, and it's called I called it Urban Intervention and Creation Program / project. That's the name I came up with it. It was really, really well received by white people. I think because I was using the terms like marginalized people. And yeah, I got 2 grants to help get this program off the ground, because white people really appreciate a Black person who thinks they're gonna go in and fix the problems caused by racism and white supremacy. And I was working in a middle school where the children have been heavily victimized, and they exhibit incorrect patterns of behavior. So I think me just using that terminology allowed me to get money to attempt to do that that project. So I'm going to read here page 84. Urban. This is a code word for Black people. The word urban in its original context was used to designate a geographical and social location. However, as Black people began to move into central cities and whites began to leave, the urban word acquired a very strong racial orientation. It was used to separate Black areas from white areas. In the language of the back to the city movement of young whites, the word urban may take on a new racial meaning. In time, this word could become associated with their parents. However, for the present, the word urban still has a strong Black connotations and direct racial meanings. Yeah. And maybe that's a suggestion, y'all, for y'all who are trying to get grants, trying to infiltrate infiltrate any area of people activity. A suggestion could be, using some of these race code words for your benefit, because white people will much rather you say, hey, I'm trying to go in and help the urban blight or urban communities. I'm trying to go in and help marginalized people. They much rather hear that than you say, hey, I'm trying to help Black people who have been severely victimized by white supremacy, So maybe that can be a way for us to use these code words to our benefit, but understand that you're acting as a spy. You should still be telling the children correct information. So any comments before I continue?
One good thing about COVID, that over here in the projects and the housing developments, they used to have a thing called inner youth tournaments, but they've had basketball games in the projects. And so the one good thing about COVID, they have been able to do that. So, and that further brain trashes these children when they, trying to get them involved in sports. And, instead of doing something more constructive with their time, instead of bouncing a ball and just, doing whatever, they should, be trying to read and do other constructive things. So that's one good thing about COVID. No sports over here.
Agreed. I think in most cases, whenever people are trying to help the victims, they often turn to sports, putting them into some kind of sports team or whatever. But I think there are plenty of other more constructive programs that kids can be a part of. Just wanted to add that.
I'm going to play this apology really quickly that was asked to be played by Miss B. Let's see.
MLB Network went told school with its broadcast.
Yeah, I hear it. Alrighty, thank you.
For the American League Division Series between the Chicago White Sox and Houston Astros. That decision backfired in the first inning of Game 2. The booth, consisting of Bob Costas as the announcer joined by Buck Show.
I don't think the actual apology is here. Let me find the actual apology.
at the plate. In an attempt to compliment the great player that he is, I used a poor choice of words that resulted in an insensitive and hurtful remark, and I'm sorry for that.
Wow. Okay. I guess that was a I guess this apology was literally, I'm just sorry. I'm just sorry. I said some incorrect things, and I'm sorry. Maybe Helen B has comments for this clip, but I will just say this is the example of how apologies are worthless in a system of white supremacy. White people have been saying sorry for destroying us for since they've encountered us. So Black people should not care about apologies. We should not ask for apologies. We should ask for compensation and establishing a system of justice, because an apology has been used like a Band-Aid, it seems. And a Band-Aid is not going to help if they're continuing to practice racism against everyone non-white. So, you know, I think he said, this is a guy who may have said he 40 acres. We need to get more of him or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so. I got it. He said, should be a star, an all-star. I'm quoting him verbatim. I wrote everything down. And that's what they look like. My response, they who? Okay, he says, can we have one of those? 40 acres full of them. And he said, use a poor choice of words. So just to try to decode it, he said all-star. When I thought of all-star, I thought of star, bright, light, all-American, like what's on the flag, the stars that's on the flag. And yeah, that's proof right there that white people are not ignorant. He's talking about the 40 acres and a mule thing. And could we have more of them? What? Yeah, I can't even. Yeah, that's all I have. I just wanted to quote him verbatim. Can we have more of them? 40 acres full of them.
Yeah, referring to Black males on a baseball field. You know, it wasn't too long ago where Black males and Black females were forced to work the fields from night into day. So really, really telling this white man surely has ancestors, maybe his grandfather or grandma actually owned slave, because I saw a picture of him. He looks very, very, very old. So very possible indeed. Yeah, so the next word here, urban decay. I'm sure typing this in any search engine and adding news to it, you're gonna find dozens of articles and videos, but I'm just gonna read it. And urban decay, page 84. These are the Black communities that fell victim to a policy of social neglect and disinvestment. These communities suffer from a lack of resources and are allowed to be overrun with crime, chemical poisoning, social maladies, drugs, and other diseases. Now, when I moved away from the area of the world known as South Central, and whenever I would come back, I would just be, wow, this place is getting it's getting worse. You know, like there was all sorts of encampments popping up of people just suffering, people being neglected by the powerful people who could help them, white people who practice racism. And yeah, I would talk to the students I was working with, and they got it was very much embedded in their community. I mean, in their brain computer, not community. It was very much embedded in their brain computer that they live in a very, very dirty environment. Like they made similar comments as everything is dirty around here. They have to walk to school surrounded by filth, seeing seeing people like zombied out. And when I say zombied out, I mean people who are like standing up straight, but like kind of like leaned over in some sort of high gaze. And these images are not constructive for a child to be seeing every single day. And then they go to school, and then we wonder why, hey, this kid doesn't seem to care about the education. Well, I think that one of the reasons why is because we're constantly surrounded by reminders that we are being attacked and not taught the correct words to understand, hey, this is an attack. You know, living in any environment where people are allowed to just be in a crazed haze of being high, or areas where trash is just allowed to pile up and people are just allowed to cause all sorts of chaos within the area. These are attacks. The people who could stop this are all white, but they refuse to do so because they know that these experiences work to sabotage young Black people and Black people in general, and that's what they want. That's what the system is all about: sabotaging, retarding Black people, so we're unable to think correctly about how to solve this problem or even counter it. So very telling, urban decay is not a real thing. It's white people who are allowing areas where Black people reside to just become worse, you know. So the last one, or the one of the urban renewal, I didn't have notes about this one, but Helen Beast did send a video when I play, and maybe there's something in here we could decode. But page 85, Khari Enaharo calls urban renewal this right here. This was a 1960s to 1970s term that, when interpreted, meant the removal of the Negro or a Black man from the central city to be replaced with white people. So let's see what this little animation is talking about.
As a child, I would climb up on the lumber stack and look over at the white school. Huge school with a band, football team, everything that you could imagine. And on our side, here we were with our 2-room school, outdoor toilets, and 2 teachers. And gradually, as the Black population in town began to go down, that left my mother there at the school as the principal, the janitor, whatever was needed, she had to do everything. And as long as there was one Black child left in town, they had to keep the school open. So 10, 9, 8, mother was there till the last child, the last family was forced out of town. So I remember one day, mother and I got in the old station wagon because mother had heard that the school was going to be torn down. We went inside the school, we got whatever records we could find, we put them in the back of the station wagon. Then a big bulldozer came and dug a deep hole. And after digging this deep hole, just pushed our beloved school in the hole and covered it up. And it was as though it was never there. Years later, when I was in graduate school and people would talk about urban renewal, I had a particular perspective. To me, urban renewal meant they'll dig a deep hole and push your school, cover it up, and it'll be like the school never existed or you never existed. I'll never forget those days. Even today, this town of Sheridan, Arkansas is an all-white town. And if you ever have an opportunity to go through that town, drive very slowly.
It's very chilling, tragic.
Well, we're outnumbered.
Terroristic. I hate that Facebook will play nonsense after something constructive like that. But wow, yeah, definitely definitely Khari Enaharo's understanding of urban renewal, you know, getting rid of the Black people, replacing it with white people. And that town in Arkansas is a awesome example of just the power of white supremacy. They have the ability to completely get rid of every single Black person out of a town, and still to this day, there's probably not that many Black people, if any, living there. Wow. Thank you for sending that my way, Miss B. Go ahead.
I was just saying it's racial population dislocation confusion and racial population tailoring confusion.
Correct. Wow. Yeah, that was really produced many incorrect feelings and in my being, but as does most things within this hellish system that we're all born into and have the responsibility to eliminate. So the next word here, urban sprawl, is a really interesting one. On page 85, it says, this is a new code word that means the niggers are coming, the expansion of city life is new. Little cities have been developed for years by majority white populations and have never been classified as urban areas. They were called suburban communities, which when decoded means white, in order to distinguish them from Black communities. As Black people began to expand to the outer areas and geographical locations, the term urban, which has come to mean Black, is attached to the out migration pattern. The sprawl means to straggle, digress, or stray. These definitions are designed to send hidden messages that the movement of Blacks into sanctuaries of white people is wholly unaccepted. So, which is we talked about this a lot earlier in the earlier discussions where the property value, wherever Black people move in, the property value goes down, and then eventually the whites will run away, will move away. This is very similar to that. Wherever there's Black people, best believe if it gets too many of them, white people will either leave or do something to make the Black people leave. You know, it's often been called gentrification, which I'm sure some of us are victims of, myself included. But again, this is just a code word for racial population dislocation. You know, keeping Black people on the move, whether it's by making the area that they reside in no longer affordable for them, or creating or using racist tactics such as eminent domain, which says, hey, this is now part of eminent domain, and we're going to give you a few crumbs for your property, but you can't do anything to stop this from losing your property. So I think Fuller told a story that someone in his victim unit lost their dwelling through eminent domain. And eminent domain is often used to get rid of a ton of Black people to make traversal going from place to place easier for white people. You know, they'll make a freeway where a Black neighborhood used to be, or they'll make a subway where a bunch of Black people used to live. It's all very related to population dislocation, which all non-white people, I suspect, are victims of. Tacky, trashy, and very, very, very terroristic.
I'm constantly hearing on the news a term, what is the term? Something infrastructure. I think they're trying to put in money for so-called I think that's going to deeply affect non-white people. They claim they need to improve on the highways and this and that. It's going to affect us in a really bad way.
As does most things that comes from racist men and racist women. That is the design. So this next term is very, very significant. It's menace to society on page 86. The phrase menace to society was used by FBI Director John Edgar Hoover to defame high-profile white crime figures such as Pretty Boy Floyd, John Dillinger, and Bonnie and Clyde. And in the 1980s, the phrase was applied to Black males. This connection was popularized by the movie Menace to Society that showed dangerous Black youth senselessly murdering and destroying innocent people. This is one of the most dangerous terms ever devised. It is surely one of the tools used to set Black males up for concentration camps, prison, or institutions of racial containment. This means that Black males are under constant surveillance and deemed to be a threat to the order of white society. They are treated as suspects and criminals and judged to be guilty until proven innocent. And I think that movie, Menace to Society, does have some constructive value if you are studying that film to understand what the niggerization process looks like and what a highly niggerized individual will spend their time and energy doing, which is simply creating chaos, harming fellow non-white people, because I don't think any white people were killed in that film by any Black people. So really telling, let's actually see what happens when I Google Menace to Society. Let's see what images pop up besides the movie. I know the movie's gonna pop up for sure. So let's see what pops up.
Oh man, I when they said Menace to Society, I was thinking of the one with the Wayans brothers, but I've definitely seen this film. This is a triple teed up film. I mean, I think this is the yeah, never mind.
Yeah. So we're not getting so Google has become a really lame search engine. I probably should have used DuckDuckGo, but nonetheless, John Singleton's Menace to Society, I'm sure it was used by white supremacists to say, hey, this is why we need tougher crimes, tougher laws, because Black people are simply out of control. And they play movies like Boys in the Hood. Oh, right here, Boys in the Hood. They play movies like Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society to get their to get that imagery across. The next,
I mean, I'm a Black person, and if I watch that movie, I'd be scared of Black people.
Yeah,
I didn't know no better. If I was more confused.
Yeah, I watched
Having poverty stricken. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I watched Boys in the Hood as a more confused adult, and it's still a chilling film because it's just very, very tragically realistic when understanding the programming, the niggerization process given to us by the system of white supremacy. So these are the images that come up when we search in poverty stricken. I'm gonna read the race code war decoding of poverty stricken. The term was originally used to define the living conditions of poor whites. However, this has changed dramatically. The term is now reserved for exclusive identification of Black people. The term is interesting. How does poverty strike someone? Poverty is an economic condition brought on by purposeful neglect and exploitation. I think this is a great example to say that according to counter-racist logic, compensatory counter-racist logic, that every person classified as non-white is essentially a Black person, just different shades of a brown. And we see here, a bunch of non-white people, a bunch of variations of non-white people who are living in so-called poverty. I don't know why this image is here, but yeah, when we see white people, it's always a pristine, clean image. But when we go to the non-white people, it's filth and just
I think the image being there tells the truth. I think that some white people do live in poverty, but I think the purpose of racism, white supremacy is to associate poverty only with non-white people, Black people. So even though some white people may live in poverty, you can get under a system of racism, white supremacy, you can guarantee that non-white people live in poverty. They are poverty.
Yep, and the white people who live in poverty, they have no problem getting assistance because the greatest welfare system on the planet in the known universe is a system white supremacy. That is the greatest welfare system ever established. The true welfare queens and kings are white people, racist man and racist woman. So so a poverty-stricken, so-called poverty-stricken white person can always just go to a county building and get some resources, or white people will come and deliver them food. But these victims here, not much help is coming, and if they do have help coming, it's always followed by a camera, because you can't help Black people without recording it, so people can see how good of a white person you are, or how good of your organization, or how good your organization is doing in countering poverty. But the best way to counter poverty and end poverty is to eliminate racism and white supremacy, which produces poverty and destroys people. Yeah. Oh, the last one, my last of notes is I'm going to read the definition, the decoding. This is from page 86. This is a code, prison reform. This is a code term for how to manage Black people in prison. It refers to the methods that work best for controlling and manipulating Black males in captivity. So here, an area of the world known as New York, they are changing how they are going to be imprisoning Black males. They're reducing the prison sizes. They're not getting rid of prisons, they're reducing the sizes. Instead of white people creating, just creating programs or compensating for their white supremacist system, instead of them compensating for that and like finding a way to prevent Black males from going to prison, they're just refining how they're going to be housed in prisons, which is very telling, very telling. And this word fairer keeps coming up in this article. It comes up a number of times. All right. 3 different times this word comes up. And the justice system should be fairer, changing the culture inside jails, fostering community connections, providing greater accesses. Black people need services that prevent them from going to greater confinement. But no, we just want to house you in a more maybe comfortable greater confinement, just more comfortable captivity. Super terroristic. Black people have been imprisoned in the mind since this business of white supremacy got started, and I suspect it's been a couple of thousand years. But they have imprisoned our minds for a very long time, and they are dedicated to imprisoning our bodies as well. So it's just a fairer culture inside. I think that means wider culture. They want the Black males in captivity to maybe act more white, or maybe that's code for they want the Black males in captivity to be easily controlled by the wardens or the prison masters. So it's really why I check out this article to see how they're trying to refine their efforts of keeping Black males in prison. Again, they're not trying to reduce the number of prisoners. They're just trying to find different ways of housing the prisoners. There's no mention here of eliminating or reducing the number of Black males who are going to be led to prison. Ms. B, did you have something to share?
Whenever a candidate, mayor, governor, whenever someone's running for mayor or governor, they always bring up prison reform. And a lot of times that person will win if that term is brought up. Quite a few people have died in Rikers Island, and that's why they're supposedly, shutting it down, and they're going to build little mini prisons in all the 5 boroughs. And that's how they plan to improve on so-called Rikers Island, greater confinement. I wonder what they're going to do with Rikers Island, because it's just going to be open, available, just nothing. Very interesting, something to pay attention to, find out what are they going to do with that area.
Yeah,
and going back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I said that they're building offices and what else?
And houses, like basically gentrifying it.
Yeah, they're gentrifying it. They're gonna be building houses there and offices there, probably for white people.
It is so out of the way. It is. Oh, I couldn't imagine living over there. It's so far. It's out of the way of everything. Kwaku played earlier a race card game. He was showing a race card game, and this is in connection to Minister Society. So I haven't watched that movie in a long time. I think I only saw it once. I'm not a fan of the movie, but some non-white people, associates, they would always ask, like, what's your favorite line in the movie? What's your favorite line? And I'm like, I don't remember. I only watched the movie once. And then this whole thing would be brought up. Oh, I'm pulling your black card. I'm pulling your race card because you're not you don't remember this ghetto movie or whatever. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? Yeah. So I just wanted to bring pulling your black card. Yeah, for not being able to recite a stupid movie, a ghetto glorified movie.
Yeah, and that's very common. We're so confused that we associate being black with just being being able to regurgitate ghetto glorification. You don't know, you don't remember the lines from Minister Society. You don't remember him saying that I feel sorry for your mother. You don't remember that? You're not black. So we associate being black with being silly and stupid tragically, and that has to end. We have to begin to associate being black with being a prisoner of war, victim of racism, who should be serious about solving this problem. Because being black is not knowing that Kobe scored how many points during his season. That's not being black. That's being confused and being led to participate in non-constructive things and spend your time and energy doing non-constructive things. We need to know what racism is and how it works. We need to know about the simple sabotage manual and how white people have been sabotaging us for centuries. We need to know how the Yurugu operates and how the Yurugu views people who are not white. This is what we should know. Not what's Ice Cube's name in Friday, or who's his best friend in Friday. This is not what it means to be black, but this is what we spend our time doing, having fun, being silly. And it's all.
We need to become problem solvers. We need to become thinkers. We need to be known for that.
Yes, exactly. And it shall happen with an effective number. As I said earlier, we do not need every black person helping to solve this problem, although that would be really grand and epically constructive. We just need an effective number of black people using codified language, saying, hey, you know what? I'm not having sex with you. You're a white person. Actually, I'm not even talking to you unless it's for my plantation job or it's for discussing how we're going to solve this problem. If that were to happen, white people will begin to treat us very differently, whether it's more violently or helping us to produce justice. But we should not be hanging around white people. We should not be hanging around each other if it's not for constructive purposes. But the message will be received by those who are willing to solve the problem. Are there any more comments regarding the text, pages 77 through 86? If not, we can get into closing comments. And for the folks on the stream, thank you for your participation. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and share it as well. It's a good way to get the information out to more Black people, victims, prisoners of war. If there are no more notes to be shared, I guess we'll get into closing comments. Yeah, a big takeaway from this business meeting is sports, super non-constructive, and it's gotten so bad, and we're just in such a hypnotic state that we have fantasy football, fantasy baseball, so it's just super telling of what has been done to our minds, and our minds have been severely sabotaged and retarded. And if you think I'm using that word incorrectly, I'm just gonna get the definition right now, because people always think I'm using this word incorrectly, and I'm so retarded I can barely spell the word myself. All right. Okay. Retarded, less advanced in mental, physical, or social development than is usual for one's age. Very foolish or stupid. And I hate to report that if we're spending our time, talking about imaginary football teams, imaginary basketball teams, we're spending our time sitting in front of a mirror, putting on all these cosmetics to look more so-called pretty. We're spending our time arguing with each other about, hip hop, love and hip hop relationships and stuff like that. That's very retarded behavior. That is what children do who are trying to imitate very, very confused adults. So we have to really improve our mental, physical, and social abilities, because that's the only way we're going to solve this problem. It's not our fault we have been put in such a retarded state, but it is our responsibility to correct it. Because white people are not going to lift us up out of anything. They enjoy our position being here at the very bottom. So that's my closing comment. And folks who'd like to share, please chime in.
For my closing comment, I would totally agree. Sports. I think this portion of the text had a lot to do with sports. Sports serve very non-constructive purposes. I think if Black people got together and stopped talking about sports so much, and spent time doing more constructive things, talking about solving the problem, not how many points this basketball player got or the record they're breaking, we would make great ground on solving the race problem. I felt like this discussion was constructive. I'm looking forward to the next business meeting as usual. Thank you all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, producejustice.com. Get the book, Race Code War by Khari Enaharo. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Kweku. Any more closing comments from the panel?
This was a very constructive business meeting, and we're just attempting to reach Black people all over the planet. We need a very critical number to counter the system of white supremacy. And I look forward to the next business meeting.
Hi, Helen B. here. Very constructive business meeting. I learned a lot. Like, there were a lot of terms that I wasn't even familiar with. And I was like, wow, okay. So yeah, this book is extremely informative, very helpful. And going back a little bit on race card, what's it called? Race card? Yeah, I think it's the race card, right? I hear a lot of conservatives use that term, AKA white people, so-called conservatives. Yeah, they use that term a lot. And I can't wait until the next meeting. Thank you all.
All righty. Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna one more. Ray brought up something really telling. He brought up Black people being paid to race animals. If that doesn't teach you about how we are viewed in the system of white supremacy, I don't know what is. But white people have a fascination with comparing Black people to animals, and it has manifested in the reality that Jesse Owens, the person who defeated the white runners during the Holocaust, he was victimized to the degree where he was racing animals after helping the so-called Americans to win against the German Nazis during the 1930s. So white people have no intention of helping us to solve this problem. They much prefer us raising animals forever. So it's not something we should be okay with. It's something that should motivate us to make serious changes to our thought, speech, and behavior. And thank you all for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe so other victims are given an opportunity to come across this information. We will be live again sometime today, just decoding Charlie Brown's pumpkin show, maybe in about 2 hours or so. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in again, and CRWS signing out. And stop recording.